Hi, how are you?
Hey,
It's
good to see you.
ama- Sorry, it's amazing to see you both today. I feel blessed because a lot of the people that I'm seeing are people that are either friends or people that I just admire so much, and it's both your cases, and we'll come to that. But I'm gonna start by talking to Leslie a little bit. And Leslie, I you have a best-selling book called Crazy Love. And I know we always talk about this a little bit, but I find that fascinating when we talk about, domestic violence specifically. The fact that I think that we miss talking about love a lot and what crazy love feels like, and can make us do. I would love to kind of start talking to you about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's such a great point that you're making that abusers are hiding in plain sight all the time. They're not monsters, and we wouldn't love them if they were monsters, and we wouldn't be trapped by them. And my story starts in my own family, where I adored my mother. She was the hero of my life, and my family was very misogynistic. My father, who I also loved, did not respect her. And then I became a victim of domestic violence myself right after I'd graduated from Harvard College, and moved to New York City to work for 17 Magazine. And I married a wonderful, amazing investment banker who unfortunately had been terribly abused as a child. And I loved him. And for years, he tried to kill me. He held loaded guns to my head. He strangled me. It was horrific. And nothing in my life had ever prepared me for the mix of violence and love. It's what made it so hard to survive it and so very difficult to leave him.
And Leslie, you've taken this to the next step in a way where you have written about it. You have a very successful TED Talk, but you're also a board member for One Love Foundation, and the DC Lawyers one. I would want to kind of try to understand what made you take that step. Not every survivor decides to do advocacy. So how was that journey for you?
Well, I think in some ways it's two big factors. One is that I'm not a private person at all, and I never thought that the abuse was my fault. And also, I feel like I come from such incredible privilege, that it was my obligation to speak out. I didn't have children with my abuser. I'm not financially dependent on him. I had no cultural pressure to stay silent. And so when I was called upon after Crazy Love was published, my TED Talk did so well. I thought I want to just keep on speaking out about this and connecting with other survivors. It's very healing for me too. In addition to what you talked about, I'm on the board of the Conference on Crimes Against Women in Dallas, Texas, and Chessie Prout's foundation, I Have a Right To. These are organizations that are just deeply committed to breaking the silence about abuse. And it's something that every person can do. Every man, woman, and child on this planet can talk about the experience of being human and being a victim of abuse, because abuse is everywhere. Anyone can be a victim. You can have gone to Harvard and Wharton as I did and still be an abuse victim and still have a very hard time leaving. And I believe the way that we connect with other people and the way that we end global abuse against women is by speaking out about it. And I've committed my life to doing it. It's all that I write about. If you come to my website, lesliebooks.com, you'll see everything that I'm doing. And in some ways, how simple it is to speak out.
Hmm. And Leslie, I am sure that you have many people that come to you, especially after that super powerful TED Talk, I've read your books, ask, that they're ready to leave, but they're unsure. Like, what is your advice to survivors if they're thinking about leaving an abusive relationship?
The best and most important thing to do is to tell somebody who you trust about what is happening to you at home, that you're being hurt, or if it's at work or a dating relationship, it doesn't matter. Confide in somebody who you can trust. And I also would say, because my advice is not just for victims, but for people who love us, is that if somebody in your life, if you suspect they are being abused or hurt, emotionally or physically. And it doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter their gender or their sexual orientation. This happens to everybody. Talk to them about it. And don't pressure them to leave. Don't shame them. Don't demonize their abuser. Just look them in the face and say, I care about you, and I need to know that you're safe, and I need you to know that I'm a resource for you. Because that's what saved me in my darkest moments, when I wasn't telling anybody, when I wanted to protect my abuser because I loved him. I had two people in my life, a man and a woman, separately confront me very gently and say, I need to know that you're safe. And that's all it takes to help somebody. This is a massive problem. It's much more common and widespread than anybody realizes around the world, but it's also easier to reach victims and help people just by speaking about it, which is what we're doing today.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I'll come back to you, but now I would love to talk to Rita a little bit. And we go so far. And Rita, you've worked in a crisis hotline. You were the national executive director of the National Coalition for Domestic Violence in the U.S. for many, many years. So you've done your whole span of your career on this topic. What changes have you seen through that time?
Well, Pamela, I have seen some pretty enormous changes, I think, and some that I wish I knew how to activate. Things that I think should be very simple seem to be the hardest to do. But early on in the very early '80s, when I first started this work, nobody knew what we were talking about. We called it battered women. And so we didn't have language for it. We didn't have resources for it. We just found, as women talking to women, that there was a need to provide safety. And so shelters started to be created, and coalitions started to be formed, and laws started to be passed. And women do really well collectively. And so we built an enormous network of services in a pretty short period of time when we got focused on it. And I think that for me, the thing that really got me rooted in this work is because I didn't think I was going to be doing this work. It really wasn't a thing to do. It wasn't a career path when I just got out of school. But my first year or two working in a shelter, meeting with women and their children, and the stories that they told me, and the people that they were, and the strength and resilience that they experienced and showed me, just hooked me. It was like, this matters. This work matters. And what it felt like was that if we could figure out how to disconnect love and abuse, then we could really make a difference. People mistook what was happening, or said to people what was happening. Well, if he didn't care so much about you, he wouldn't do X, Y, or Z. Those things are not compatible. If you're being hurt, they don't love you. It's not, as Leslie said, it's crazy love. That's not love. That's not real. And we needed to disconnect those two things. So the changes, happened gradually, but, we got to a place where we had language for it. We actually started to get influence in our communities and in our states, and then eventually in the nation. And so those changes have been real. And I think that it's due to the hard work of not just advocates, but survivors who were willing to share their stories, because it is not an easy process. And a lot of people don't believe you. And the courage that it takes to actually share that publicly has always been awe-inspiring for me. And I thank Leslie and everyone like her who educated me and made me the expert I am, because that's where I learned it. I learned from survivors.
No, thank you so much for that. And I we'll make it here today. Complete public record acknowledged. I don't believe I would be the CEO of No More if it wouldn't have been for Rita's intervention and support of me when I was starting my career quite young into this. So, Rita, what should we be doing better to support young people who are coming into this space, who want to be advocates, who are our future leadership?
Well, I think what I want them to know is that this is really good work. This is work that has value, and that you will be absolutely blessed if you want to choose it as your option. They're the most amazing people I've ever met are the people who work in this field, who need our help and then come back to lead in this field. So it's a great career. It's also a place where you can make a significant difference. It's really important that you understand that it's what will create better spaces for all of us in our communities, because the violence that happens in a home, it doesn't stay there. It starts there. Violence in our community starts in the home. And if we do not address it, if we do not reduce it, if we do not take it seriously, then we end up with mass murders and other kinds of gang violence and other kinds of violence and homelessness. There are all kinds of things that spin off from the issues that are created by people not feeling safe at home. And so for me, it's, if you want to make a difference, if you want to have a career that puts you in spaces like, for me, ending up in the White House, being invited numerous times, I didn't expect that to be a part of the process, but you can do amazing, creative, interesting work and actually make your community and your country better. And I don't know that you can do that in other career paths. So come be a leader with us. We need you desperately.
So for everybody seeing us, we need you. We need your help. This is the only way that, this kind of global problem will end. Leslie, to start closing, I have like a minute or so. Why is marking the Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women important?
It's so important because it's a way of breaking the silence about abuse and about the experience that women go through as victims of gender violence throughout our lives. And abusive partners and abusive political regimes try to do two things. And this is a stand against both of these things. The first thing that they try to do is to isolate and divide women, to prevent us from connecting with each other. Because as Rita said, there's incredible strength in women connecting with each other, believing each other, and supporting each other. The second thing that abusive partners and abusive political regimes try to do is that they try to silence us.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally why abusive partners strangle us. It's why my ex-husband strangled me. It was just to silence me. So I couldn't talk, so I couldn't scream, so I couldn't ask for help. So don't let those things happen. And that's what we're doing here, is that we're breaking the silence, we're communicating about it, we're believing each other. And also, it's really important to get men involved in this, whether it's a political leader or Justin Baldoni or Anderson Cooper or anybody else who can help us amplify our message. We need men in this fight too. Women are incredibly powerful, but this is not a women's issue. This is an everyone issue. It's a human issue. And we are all fighting it together today. Thanks, Oli.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your inspiring words. Rita, we literally have 20 seconds. One key message you want to leave the audience today with in this day.
Well, I will add on to what Leslie said, which is that we need men. We need good men. They need to start taking the courage of their convictions. It's why I ended up at the NFL, because I started that path in 1998, saying we have to have more men say this is not acceptable behavior, and you have to say it to other men.
Thank you so much, both of you, for being such great advocates in this space. Lots of love. Thank you very much.